PLD PJ Campbell. Two mediocre white dudes on film. Because frankly, we know you don't have enough of that in your life. So we're here to give you more. And without further ado, here are two mediocre white dudes on film.
I hate everything. That was a nice bumper that you added to the beginning of the show, though.
Thanks. My son,
that's the best thing I can say about literally anything else we're about to talk about.
my son actually created that. It's actually very impressive. He did.
Wait, your son created that?
He did.
Good for him.
I was like, thanks, bud. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you know what, man? That's fucking awesome. That's a good kid right there.
Yeah, not too shabby.
The opposite of everything we're going to talk about later in this episode about a certain movie.
That exists, unfortunately.
Does it?
Exists. It does exist because I did watch it, so it does exist.
Well, apparently we both did, but I'm convinced it was a fucking fever dream. And I'm not talking about Avatar: The Way of Water.
No, which we both saw. Which
I want to talk about for a little bit, actually, because I'd like to start and not kill myself before we talk about anything else. Because I'm going to be honest with you, this is not going to go well. Tonight is not going to go well. It's just not.
You know what, though? I've actually heard from some people that they've been looking forward to this episode.
Yeah, I got the same message from a couple of people, probably some of the same people you got the same fucking message from.
Yeah.
Fuck you guys, number one. You heathens. It's the best way I can describe it. Yeah. Garbage people. Yeah, all of you who said you were very excited to hear us talk about the really terrible Final Destination movie. Wow,
the Final Destination.
The Final Destination.
Decimation, maybe? Yeah. Yes, you're going for it? I don't know.
No, I just can't apparently talk while we're doing this. But yeah, tonight we're talking about 2009's Final Destination, once again directed by the late David R. Ellis, who did Final Destination 2, which is a pretty fucking good movie.
Yeah.
This is not.
Which makes
I don't want to talk about that just yet.
Right,
I don't. Right. You know why? Because it makes me sad. And I'm going to fucking prolong this as long as possible. Do you see how much I'm already swearing out the gate? Because I'm just feeling so terrible about this movie.
I got to say, I will throw it out there before we break.
Don't throw things. I don't want you to put your back out. I don't want you to hurt yourself.
We both watched this at different times. But we both text each other throughout. Just
more than we have ever done watching anything at one time.
And basically everything was, what is this? Why is this? What are we doing here?
And again, to like, you've never seen this movie.
Correct.
I have. But it had been a while. This is not a movie I revisit for very friggin' obvious reasons now in hindsight. This is a bad movie, and it should feel bad.
You know, it wasn't a bad movie, though.
Avatar: The Way of Water
was not bad.
I am beside myself. Like, actually, I'm not. Look, okay. Here's the thing. I've made it a point on here. It's kind of a part of the bit that I'm very hard on the first Avatar. And look, I still don't think it's like a great movie. I don't. I don't think the first one's like a great movie. It's fun to watch. It's beautiful to look at.
It's well directed.
It's really fucking by the numbers.
Yeah.
Right?
It's well crafted.
It's well crafted. It's a well-made movie because James Cameron doesn't make non-well-made movies. He just doesn't.
Despite what you would have us think occasionally.
Yeah, despite how often I put on this brave face of saying that James Cameron doesn't know what he's doing or whatever. Because look, it really is a bit. It really is. People really think I hate James Cameron. I don't. I don't hate his movies. I don't. No, I don't. I think he's an asshole because he is.
Well, yeah, that's different.
Because he's earned the right to be, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, the dude is James Cameron. He has earned the right to be an asshole.
He hasn't missed whether, even if Avatar is the most polarizing of his films, but even then, the most polarizing of your film is the most financially successful film of all time. Then you still I still consider that a win for him.
By the way,
Overall.
you see I'm wearing a black phone shirt
Is that a
today.
black phone shirt? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it
I saw
is. Yeah,
black.
look at
I was
that.
like, oh, that's a
Look at
nice
that.
shirt.
Fright Rags. You guys can go find that at Fright Rags. Not that they, sponsor us, but they should.
You should.
I have people who come into the bar now every time they come in, like they're regulars that I just know,
Right.
and they're great, and I like hanging out with them. And every time they see me, they have me open my shirt to because I always have the flannel on over because
Right, of course.
you know me. I like flannels. I like long sleeve. I always wear them.
Mm-hmm.
And they always come in and they go, "What shirt are you wearing today?" They always want to see what the next horror tee is. And today, actually, funny enough, I was at one end of the bar and I was pouring a beer, and I had some regulars at the other end, and they were talking, and someone kept saying Haddonfield. And I can hear it, and I'm going, "Why are they talking about Halloween?"
Right.
And finally, I have this regular named Kyle who I think is just the best. He and we get along really well. We nerd out. We talk about movies all the time. He's just like a really good dude. And he goes, "Yeah, Haddonfield." And like everyone goes kind of quiet, and he goes, "The fictional town where the Halloween movies take place." And I like finally turn around because I poured the beer and I was walking it back over. And I was like, "Yeah, did you guys not know that?" And one of the other regulars, he goes, "Well, of course you know it. You're the movie guy. Like, that's your thing." And I was like, "Fuck, dude. Am I really that? Like, I really just, even working at a bar,
You exude it. Yes.
I just have not changed."
Maybe they just watch your show. Maybe they watch us. So they know
Some of them apparently have started listening to it.
Oh, wow. Good for them.
No, I mean, good for the views.
Yeah.
Maybe less for me. I'm not.
Apologize for this episode.
I should apologize for a lot of things, probably. But all this to go back. I very, very kind of like whatever with Avatar because, like you said, it's very divisive. It just is. It just was. It still is. It probably always will be. But it is still the highest grossing film of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Cameron decided that he was going to only make Avatar movies for the rest of his life. That was his choice. I don't necessarily agree with it, but he decided that was the thing he was going to do, and he was also going to take his fucking time to do it.
I actually hate that that's what he's deciding to do. All outside. I mean, I would rather see him just we could get more from him in the Aliens franchise, more in the Terminator franchise, something original, maybe a True Lies sequel, for Christ's sake, anything. I'd like to see.
You mean that you're not looking forward to the True Lies TV show on CBS?
That's correct. I am not looking forward to that show.
Did you watch? Did I show you that trailer? Did we watch that together?
Yeah, I've not watched that together now.
It's really bad.
Is it bad?
Oh, it looks. I mean, dude, it looks like a CBS procedural with the name True Lies on it that James Cameron apparently signed off on because he's producing the stupid thing.
Oh my god.
It's real bad. We can watch it together after this is over.
All right, we will.
I'm sorry in advance. But all things being equal, I'm not like thrilled that this is the way that he has decided to take his career or whatever. But look, he's earned the right to do what he wants to do. So my ass decided to go opening day that Thursday. Well, not technically opening day, preview night. That's what they call Thursdays, I guess, now is preview night. It's not opening day. Yeah, that's now called preview night.
When did that happen?
It's how all the trades call it because they always say like when a movie does whatever it does at the box office on the weekend, it'll be like it made this much on the first 3 days plus previews, which is Thursday.
So taking a chapter out of like the Broadway book, so to speak. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. So I took my ass out to see it on Thursday night or Thursday afternoon rather because this movie is 3 hours and 15 minutes long.
It is.
Which means that the earliest showing with this high frame rate version of the film was 4 p.m.
Okay.
I did not get out of the theater until 7:30. But boy, dude, I gotta say, that Cameron, that dude,
he can make a movie.
He can make a fucking movie. Let me tell you. I was kind of over the moon when I walked out, and like shockingly so.
Yeah.
Because I did not anticipate loving this movie. And now I'm not going to go out of my way and say it's like a my favorite movie of the year. It's maybe not even top 10, probably just outside of it. But
Right.
it felt different. I was really reminded how blockbuster filmmaking kind of used to be.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And yeah, right? Like I don't know, man. I walked out and I was just like, Cameron, number one, it's basically just T2 in space. Um, pretty much beat for beat T2 in a lot of ways, down to the third
Actually,
act.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, but there's a very divisive character. You and I have talked about it privately.
Right.
Jarvie, who is like, if you guys have watched the channel and watched Class Action, Jarvie is one of the hosts over on Class Action.
Yep.
He loves the original Avatar and he really liked the new one, but there's this character named Spider. He's the only human character in the movie for the most part.
Right. Yeah.
And he's basically a lead character. And Jarvie was like, man, I really hated that character. And I was like, really? Because I just saw John Connor on Pandora. Like, that character is exactly the same, except for having daddy issues. He has, except for having
Mommy issues.
mommy issues, he has daddy issues.
Right. We talked about this a little bit, and I'm probably more on Jarvie's side than you. I didn't like Spider either. When you did mention the John Connor of it all, I did kind of sit back with that, saw what you were going for, or saw what you saw. Didn't quite win me over, but it did help me a little bit.
I'm not saying it needs to win you over, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, that character is just John Connor. Like, even the line readings sound like Edward Furlong.
Yeah.
If I didn't know better, I would think James Cameron cloned Edward Furlong, gave him dreadlocks, and put him in the movie.
That's pretty funny. I wasn't a big fan of what he did. I felt like he was out of place a lot of the times, to be honest with you.
Well, he was. That was the point.
No, yeah, no, I know, but even like out of place,
and that's not like
movie,
spoilers
not
or anything.
like,
But the point is he's not supposed to be. He's supposed to be out of place. I mean, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it is.
I know his character's out of place. I felt like the actor felt like he was out of place, and that's probably, you know what, I got it. I will say I've softened on X. I got to give him credit because he must have been acting up against 1,000 green screens, because it was definitely much more. I mean, he was the only human in a CGI world,
only fucking human for the most part
for a lot of his sequences. So that I will kind of give him credit for, but I just didn't care about his character very much at all, to be honest.
And that's fair. I would never push back on that. Yeah. Not even a little bit. I just mean, oh yeah, that character is just straight up.
Yeah.
Edward Furlong in T2. I mean, his line readings are the same. The way the character acts is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, look, it's Edward Furlong. Sigourney Weaver playing a teenage Na'vi. And the way that actually was tied in, because I was wondering why they brought her back for it, but the way that story played out was actually like super fascinating.
It made sense. Yeah. It helped build the mythos of it in a way. And she did a great job at it.
She's incredible in it.
Yeah. I was like, for a 74-year-old or whatever she is playing a teenager, she handled it quite well. And I didn't even see her in the role per se. Like it wasn't even until afterward. I'm like, oh, because I knew Sigourney Weaver was in the movie. I didn't know anything else about it. I didn't realize what she was playing. I try to say kind of, I don't even try to stay neutral. I just didn't care about it because I wasn't. Truth be told, I was not hyped up for this movie very much.
You and I both.
Right. So I just didn't really watch. I watched like the trailers. They did nothing for me, but I didn't really read anything about it. So I knew Sigourney Weaver was in the movie, but I didn't know where. And she does have the appearance as herself. I was like, oh, that's all she's in, huh? Didn't even realize that she was the younger version of herself.
Yeah, I knew she was. I knew she was the daughter. That was the only thing I knew. I didn't know any because I think it was Cameron who was like, "Yeah, it's really cool." Sigourney plays a teenager in it. She plays Jake. She plays Jake's daughter, and I was like, "Wait, what?"
That makes no sense, but it does after you watch.
But it does, and I don't want to get into the why and how until people see it because I think it's actually much better revealed.
Right.
Which also leads to, holy fuck, dude. Stephen Lang is so great and like the perfect mustache twirling villain.
Yes.
Again.
I agree. It's one of those things, like one of my negatives about the film, I wasn't thrilled how they brought him back.
Like, I love it because it's nonsense sci-fi babble.
That's exactly, and that's where I'm going to get to. Because like my initial thought was like, that makes no sense what you're doing here. It is so very blatantly obvious we need to get Stephen Lang back in this movie. So we're just gonna throw something at the wall, even though it really doesn't pass the logic sense. And you're gonna sit there as an audience and go, yeah, it's fucking Stephen Lang, so I'll let it go. I'll buy into it.
100%, and that's exactly, and he's super good in it. I do have a like minor issue with the
Okay.
movie,
Okay, I had
and
a couple
it's not
myself.
necessarily an issue with the movie itself so much as the world of Pandora and the films as a whole. The fact that all the Na'vi look so similar
Mhm.
makes some of the action sequences actually a little frustrating at points, and
I agree.
because you can lose yourself in a moment where you're not sure who's doing what.
Right. You go, wait, which one? Oh, that was that one. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, because there was more than a few times where I had to like stop and recalibrate my mind in what was going on.
Right.
Um, but that's more of an issue with the way the world is built and the way that the characters look, and
Yeah,
that's a bummer. But
it is.
otherwise, I really liked what it was going for.
Yeah, I liked a
Um,
lot of what it was going for too. I thought it had my only other. How can I say this? I think I can say without spoiling it. Like at the end of the day, I was so excited about the film itself.
mhm.
But when you get to the ending, it feels like, oh, so this was just kind of like a placeholder movie to a degree, partially. Like we're getting into that, like the ending of the film is kind of like, oh, so now the more serious thing is going to take place now for the next movie. It suffered from that a little bit
Yeah.
for me. Like the first one was definitively a good standalone movie. This one feels like it's
Well, here's
more um what's the word I'm looking for? It's more
it's
connected.
yeah. So I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think that 1, 2, and 3 will ultimately end up standing alone because there's no world where we don't get the third one at this point.
Oh, absolutely. Third is definitely coming.
Because number one, it's already done shooting.
Right.
So there's no world where we don't get the third movie. And in that regard, the good thing is that I don't feel mad about it because I know we're getting the movie. I
I
do
guess.
wish you could probably shave off a couple of the sequences towards the end to make it more standalone if you wanted to.
Yeah. I guess
Um,
I'm not even sure I want it to be. It did strike me as like a. I know I said it as a con. I guess it just left me a little uneasy. Is the not
no,
uneasy
no,
isn't the right word.
it's fair because you know why? Because you and I are so tired of watching movies that set up sequels that never happen.
Yeah, that could be.
That's become such a thing that has like plagued Hollywood for so long, right?
Right. Yeah.
John Carter, every one of the Terminator sequels past T2.
Right. Right.
Uh, like it doesn't matter what you're looking at. Any of these franchises, Lone Ranger, um, any of these like bigger budget film startups that don't go anywhere, we almost have PTSD towards it.
Right. We do.
So you start to be like, well, I don't necessarily love that because XYZ, and the XYZ is we were more hoping for something standalone, even though ultimately at the end of the day it is. But we also at least know the third one is coming.
Yeah.
And in a future world where the third one has already come out, we're probably not going to look at the second one like that. We're just going to look at it at the middle chapter of a trilogy because that's really kind of what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say. I mean, like not to at all compared to the greatness that is Star Wars. A New Hope was definitely more of a standalone. The Empire definitely led off with a finale. Like Empire, which is my favorite movie of all time, ended similarly in that
Right.
like it wasn't quite done yet. And I got over that, so I probably will get over that with further viewings.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. And
I
I'll
just
say this. There will be further viewings of this movie for me.
all right,
I have no doubt in my mind. I want to go see it again. I'm
yeah,
probably going to take myself this week to go watch it again because
nice,
I just love the movie.
good.
I
Happy
think
for you.
it's very good. I think it's actually great. I think I called it a triumph in my
Yeah,
review, if I remember correctly on Twitter. Like I
yeah.
was pretty impressed.
It's funny. I think you actually did like it more than I did, even. And I'm not saying I didn't like it, but like you've been. It's just funny to me because of how I guess it's probably because of the bit, because of how
Yeah,
ditzy
it
you
is.
were.
It's because of the bit.
Because I definitely enjoyed it. Doesn't change my mind, and that I'd rather see him do other things
I
besides
mean,
Avatar.
right.
But I'm also happy that we're getting more James Cameron movies because he does know what he's doing.
Yeah, he totally does. And the third act is some of the greatest filmmaking he's ever done. Like, I don't care how you feel about the rest of the movie, but I can't imagine anyone who goes into that movie and walks out and goes, "Well, nothing about the third act was interesting." It's some of the greatest action filmmaking I've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, the action is superb.
Hmm.
Superb. I think that was my other. Again, if I had to say a negative about the film for me, and part of it, I don't want to say it's too long because it wasn't like the film was too long.
I
It
mean,
was
it
more
is too
that
long,
it is
and
just too
I
long.
say that as someone who liked it, but
I think it's more the fact though that it's like two movies in one. Like there's like this whole movie with the family and the Tuoks and the kids discovering themselves, and that takes up a lot of the middle part of the movie. It's almost like you forget what's going on, and all of a sudden we're in this one movie, and then you turn around and the gunships show up. And you're like, oh wait, yeah, this is what's actually happening. This is the actual action point that's coming up this entire movie we're building towards. It's like two separate movies in one in a way. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is kind of it makes it for a long. That's why it's 3 hours as it is,
hmm
and why probably the third one has the 9 hour cut that Cameron supposedly delivered, wanting to finish all the special effects before he cut it down. Guy's a madman.
He's absolutely a madman. He's been a madman for a very long time, and
You know what?
we all kind of just accept it and hope for the best.
When you're a genius guy who's like made it like he has, you're allowed privileges, and that's the case there.
Just don't be Elon.
Yes, it's true.
Because look, that dude's the richest dude of all time, apparently, or who's at least alive, and he's a fucking dumbass.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just gonna say it. I'm not getting into anything else other than just don't. We afford people to act how they're gonna act when they have money, even though we really probably shouldn't. Because let's be real here: just because you have money does not mean that you get to be whatever you want, even though clearly it has allowed that in life.
It's true. It
Don't
shouldn't,
be
but
an
it does.
Elon.
Yeah.
That's all I care about. Just don't be a fucking Elon. Like I've the Twitter of it all just makes me mad because unfortunately I am someone who is TO, much like you, which is terminally online.
Very much. Yeah.
Pretty much, it's just true. It's not a thing that I necessarily love. It's a thing that was kind of born out of the last job that you and I did together before
Yeah.
we were podcasting and stuff. I mean, you and I spent a lot of time online just because of the game show we worked on. And
Yeah.
so because of that, I have grown very fond of Twitter. It's a shit show most of the time. Even pre-Elon, it was a shit show. But it was my shit show, and it made me
Yeah.
happy.
We
Now
had
this
it
dude,
had some positives to it as well. It had some connectivity things which we didn't get at different places. So I agree.
right. It is not that now.
No.
And it's just on fire. And I feel like Donald Glover in that Community gif of him boxes every time it happens.
That's fair. Yeah, that's
And
fair.
it's just like every time Elon tweets, I'm like, dude, why? Why are
Why?
you doing this? Like, why did?
Why?
Well, we all know why. He's in the middle of a midlife crisis and he's not getting help for it. He's just trying to be he's trying to convince the world that he's like the smartest man and stuff. And it's like, no, we all see through you. You're a fucking idiot. Like, just relax and go
Pretty
about your
much.
business.
Pretty much.
I just wish he'd left the goddamn app alone. He bought it on a
whim.
spiral, and now look what happened.
But to get it off of Elon, I'm back to actually Avatar real quick. Did you see that interview for Matt Damon, where like he, I guess, was originally going to be an Avatar, and
Yeah, he was always supposed to be Jake Sully.
10%. He would have gotten 10% of the gross.
Uh-huh.
Holy shit! He turned it down for the Bourne movies.
Yeah, well, because he was already deep into the Bourne movies,
Right, which just makes sense. No, I get it.
Yeah,
he was already contracted. That's why he couldn't do it. I remember
what?
Cameron saying he'd get Matt Damon to the future Avatar movies, but he's nowhere getting 10% now. Fuck that, he said.
I mean, look, here's the thing, right? When Damon would been offered the role, it was probably right around the time they would have been getting ready to shoot Ultimatum.
Yeah.
Because Ultimatum came out in 08,
I would say somewhere around there.
07,
08,
08,
yeah, let's find
maybe
out.
09. It came out somewhere between 07 and 09.
07.
07. Okay. So that means it was probably shot in 06. Right around the time Avatar was probably prepping, because the truth of the matter is Avatar took a long fucking time.
Yeah, it did. It
took a real long time. And so he's not no time to do something like that. And I'm glad that he didn't, because ultimately at the end of the day, Sam Worthington is not like the world's best actor, but he was much better in this movie than he was in the first one.
I have a hard time saying that because I call him Sam Worthless for a reason. He's one of my least favorite actors in space.
Sure.
So did he do better in The Way of Water? I guess I could begrudgingly admit that and say that, but he's still pretty shitty overall.
No, and look, that's fine, right? I'm not saying this dude deserves. There's people in this movie that I think could actually be nominated for Oscars because I think they're that good. He is not one of them.
No, God, no.
But the Jake character, all intents and purposes, ultimately at the end of the day is kind of his character.
Yeah, now
I can't imagine someone like Damon in that role.
Yeah, it was tough to bitch that.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I can't see anyone else in that role, for better or worse.
I would say it would be interesting if we could erase the Worthless out of our minds and see how Damon would have brought to the table.
Then who do you put in Terminator Salvation? Also Matt Damon?
Yes, I would put Matt Damon. If I could replace Sam Worthington with Matt Damon in every movie, I would. Because I just don't like Sam Worthington. And I'm sorry, Sam, if you're listening. I really do apologize. I don't have very many axes to grind with people, generally speaking. But you are one of the people I just don't. I'm sure you're a nice guy. I just don't like your performances. You and Jai Courtney.
Jai Courtney is the worst. Although I'll say this. There's a movie he made, not Jai Courtney, Sam Worthington. There's a movie that came out in 2014, 2015. Called Cake. It has Jennifer Aniston.
Okay.
He's excellent in it. It's the best he's ever been. It's a drama. Okay. It was actually like, oh, hey, look, you can act.
I would give any movie a shot with him, obviously, because I'm the kind of guy that thinks you can have a good shot, but like I just haven't seen anything yet that I've liked. And I mean, he's in a Ned Harris movie. I hate him in that, so that says something. He's a man of the ledge.
All right. Well, there's that, I guess.
I mean, I did not like his Macbeth. I did not like him in Salvation. I hated him in Avatar. I did not like him in the Clash of the Titans movies.
Well, look, the Clash of the Titans movies are also not exactly good movies.
Hacksaw Ridge. I didn't like him in Hacksaw Ridge, even though I like Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh, I liked him in Hacksaw Ridge. Yeah, I thought he was fine in that.
Yeah.
He was better than Jai Courtney in Unbreakable.
They're about equal to me, to be honest with you.
I would rather watch Sam Worthington.
They can both go in a car and drive far, far away.
They are the same person.
They really are.
I'm really convinced they're the same person.
I am a little bit. I'm convinced of that as well. So, either way, bye-bye and see you later.
You know what?
It's time.
That being said, I would like to say bye-bye and see you later to this movie. So I want to get this fucking thing out of the way. We're about to talk about the 2009 installment of the Final Destination franchise. The fourth film, once again, as I said earlier, directed by David R. Ellis, called The Final Destination. It was the 3D entry, of course, in the franchise because Avatar had made so much money and 3D was super popular. So they decided to shoot the goddamn thing in 3 dimensions because they thought it would add to the experience. And apparently what's interesting is I did not know that originally James Wong was supposed to come back to direct it.
Oh, I did not know that either.
I pray now to go back in time to a world where James Wong directs this, because everything about the fact that David R. Ellis came back, apparently the only reason he came back is because he got to shoot it in 3D.
Really?
Oh. Yeah, and I guess he was like super excited about that, which is just baffling to me because I don't understand it.
Well, obviously it shows that that's what he was concentrating on instead of actually concentrating on actually filming a good movie.
Well, and apparently like the script for this got written right after 3, which came out in 06. So this is 3 years after the fact.
Right.
And apparently, like, the studios were super high on the script. They thought that it was really good. And I'm out here wondering if there was a different script, because I'm going to be honest with you, from top to bottom, I love trashy movies. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of what I like is trash because I grew up watching horror films,
Yeah.
and a lot of horror films are trash, and I accept that. I'm cool with trash. Like, B-movie trash is some of my favorite filmmaking. I go to Mondo Mondays down here at the Loft every week. I went and watched this fucking movie last week called, what was it? What was the one about the Yeti from the 70s? It was the Shriek of the Mutilated.
Shriek of the Mutilating.
Incredible title for one of the worst
Mutilated.
movies I have ever seen in my life.
Huh.
It's awful, and I want you to watch it. And I don't want you to read about it. I just want you to watch it because
I'll
you're
check it
not
out then.
prepared for the movie.
Okay. I don't want
And
to
that means all of you, don't go looking into it. You're not prepared for that movie by the time it's over.
Okay.
My point is, anytime when it comes to horror films, I'm pretty much cool if you're trashy. Right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, as long as I'm having fun,
Right.
it's cool. Here's the problem. The Final Destination is not fun.
No, it's not
It's
fun at all.
badly made. It leans so heavy on the 3D of it all that whatever you want to call the premonitions in this are awful. And there's no characters here.
No.
Like, at least the first 3 offer me characters that I can kind of start to get into or like listen to and don't want to choke out as I'm watching them. This movie does not offer me that.
Not one.
The other thing about this is that there's no setup for any of what's about to happen.
No, I remember I texted you 1 minute in. I was like, this tone is just way off.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like, this is the guy who directed the second one and had all tone. Like, the usual setup. Like, I expected a Final Destination movie. Obviously, you're having a formula. At this point, 4th film in, you got a little bit of a formula. There is the big...
Unexpectedly.
Yeah, and that's fine. I expected that. I'm good with that. You set up with a big incident in the beginning. They avoid death somehow. Somebody gets a vision. They avoid death. And they spend the rest of the movie death trying to catch up to them. The setup just felt like parody. Like, the series has been known for doing these like weirdly over the top like shots of like inexplicable things happening to set up the big accident, but it just straight up felt like parody. It just straight up felt like a parody movie. I thought I was watching one of the scary movies.
So I'm looking at something about the making of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time. I always pull up the wiki, by the way, while we're doing stuff because it helps me keep all the actors and stuff in my head.
No.
I did not know that the producer of this movie, Craig Perry, said that he wanted it in 3D because it would add depth to the film, because he didn't want something popping out at the audience every 4 minutes. And yet, this movie is nothing but shit popping out at the audience every other minute.
Yeah, he does not know what he's talking about. Obviously, he's not the same franchise or series as we are. Okay. Let's get into
let's just fucking get into this, because here's the thing. I said this to you last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we were going into it, I warned you going in. I was like, this is just not a good movie. And I'll say this, it was worse than I remembered too.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a bummer. I don't like talking about movies. You know that. Our Halloween Resurrection podcast is one of my least favorite things we've ever done because it was just a miserable experience. This is not going to be that much better, but at least I got to talk about Avatar beforehand. So I think that the brilliance of the Final Destination movies to this point, and even the 5th one, which you have not seen yet, is that when it comes to the event that sets off the movie, is that it always feels grounded in a reality of a situation that you and I would find ourselves in on an everyday basis, or in a life basis.
Right.
You and I get on airplanes, we go to theme parks, We drive across bridges. You know, that is an everyday occurrence. We drive on freeways. Like, that is a thing we do. We pass big rigs. We see that stuff all the time.
Right.
So it adds a sense of realism that these movies don't need to be afforded because, frankly speaking, they're B horror films. Like, they're not, they don't need to be seeped in realism. They don't. They just don't. But it helps ground the movies in a way that makes them more terrifying.
Yeah. There was no terror here.
The gate here, this movie takes place at a NASCAR race. And I don't know about you, but I don't plan on going anywhere fucking near a NASCAR arena. And sorry, let me finish and I'll let you interject.
No, go ahead.
I apologize for stepping on you.
It's all right.
I know that people are going to say, well, look, PJ, it's a sporting event like anything else. Sure, maybe. But here's the thing. If you're at a sporting event with anything else, I would believe that something like that is more bound to happen to me because I will go to any other sporting event. NASCAR is not like a widely beloved thing, and it feels like such an oddball out of the field left choice or left turn and choice, coming off the fact that the last one was set in a theme park. And it just pulls me out of the movie right away. And the other thing is the movie just starts. Like, we have no buildup. So you have no buildup to what's going on. We don't know any of these characters that are sitting down when you first meet them. And I'm not saying that I need to know all of them right away, but I don't know anything about them because the movie just starts with no build.
Right.
You are already at the event.
See, I will push back a little bit. I think NASCAR, I think to you, it's not a big thing. But overall to the rest of the country, it's bigger than you think it is. So I didn't mind necessarily the idea of the NASCAR race being the setting. And I could buy into that aspect of it, but just not the way they did it. Like, again, my big thing is what you said, the second part of that, which is all of a sudden we're just there. All of a sudden we're just getting these like random occurrences happening, like the fucking arena's breaking, like the concrete's there, like stuff that just shouldn't happening easily. And then we're dealt with these characters that none of these characters are interesting to me at all. They have awful lines. Oh my god! Like, all of a sudden, like, are we safe to sit here? There's a fence. We're fine. Like, it's like really like.
All right, I just want to say something real quick.
Go ahead.
And this is to push back a little bit on what you were saying about the NASCAR thing. And I hate to be this person, but I'm going to be a pedantic asshole about it.
All right, go ahead.
NASCAR is not nearly as popular as people think it is. This year, it drew 3 million viewers, pretty much grand total for its Cup Series.
Mm-hmm.
Comparatively, in 2019, the average American group number of people who watch basketball is 8.8 million. That's a pretty big differential. That's
I just think you're saying. I just think you're hinged up a little bit on it because it makes having a car race, car crashes and stuff are like pretty familiar.
I get why they want to do it. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't think. Again, it does not feel like the kind of thing to me. Again, because we've also already had car crashes in this series on the freeway.
I'm back with you on that one, absolutely 100%.
Right. So why are we doing it again in an event where most people are not going to go?
Right.
It is a mind-bogglingly dumb experience to like sit down and think that is the way to go. And I don't understand why anyone was like, you know what? Well, and again, we know why, because they think it's going to cause cool car crashes on screen. And it'll look cool.
Character says.
Right. But it's awful. And it adds nothing. And frankly speaking, not only is it just a bad setup for the movie, nothing about what happens is fun to watch. It's a miserable opening.
I even said that even the racist death doesn't feel as satisfying as normal. Like the guys they're out there specifically to be racist. They're set there. They're like role in the film is so that you go when they get killed, you're like, yes, they got killed. Sweet. This just felt like it was lame. And we had a fiery death again, which is part of the franchise. But even the fiery death was lame. It didn't like it wasn't like, comparatively to any of the other fiery deaths we had. It was kind of a boring fiery death, and it's like that's like the epitome of this entire movie. It's a boring version of all the Final Destinations.
The second biggest mistake, rather, that this movie makes, to your point, is that after the movie opens, it decides to have this weird opening sequence where it starts to show all the deaths that came before, but in skeletons.
Yeah. What was that?
I don't understand, but it also reminds me of a bunch of really cool deaths in other movies that are better than anything I'm about to see in this.
Right. It's God. Everything about it, like, and the effect, like, I think I posted this to you too. I am not an effects guy. My son did a little graphic beforehand. I don't do that stuff at all. The fucking the visual effects, they look like I did the effects for. Like, they're just not good. Like the visions that he has, they add these like weird like computer graphic stuff. I'm like, this is the best you can do. I mean, this is a film whose budget was what,
$40 million.
$40 million, and that's the best you can do. I mean,
they spent all the money on doing 3D, dude. Like that, you want to be real, that's it. And that was all done again to just lean on the 3D craze.
Yeah.
But the problem is that I don't give a shit about anything that's happening in this movie.
Not one thing.
The effects work throughout this movie is like atrocious. During the opening sequence, when their cars start to flip and things are falling, every part of it is CGI'd to hell, and it looks real bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is not aged well at all.
Nope.
And I pointed out in the third one, I was like, there's a little bit of CGI in that opening that is a little wonky, but it never pulls me out of the experience. No. Here I was watching it, and everything looked fake to the point that I couldn't enjoy it. And I was just sitting there dumbfounded that this was a $40 million film that looked like it was made for $12. Like, it didn't look much better than a Sci-Fi Channel movie.
And couldn't afford Tony Todd, obviously.
Yeah, that's the other thing. All right. This movie is egregious for a couple of reasons. Things I've talked about with the opening, things I feel about the characters, but the worst possible thing it could do outside of being just boring, which it is the fact that it pretty much throws out all the stuff that we have come to know about these films. Yes. And
there's
then
no connective tissue. None.
Right. There's no connective tissue to the point that Tony Todd's not in it. But even they start to go back to some of how the first film operates in newspaper clippings, but they do it randomly. And so there's no rhyme or reason. And because they save so many characters up front and you don't care about any of them and you never get to know any of them, the entire movie at 81 minutes, by the way, the shortest movie by far in this franchise.
And it felt like it was longer than Avatar. Let me just say.
It feels longer, but it also feels like a sped up version of a Final Destination movie because they start to realize that they need to kill all these characters.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because they saved too many in the beginning.
Not only that, but it gets lazy. Like our lead character there, a guy with a vision,
Bobby Campo.
Yeah. Like he starts like figuring out the ideas, like everything by himself. Like, I don't understand why. I mean, I guess they didn't want to explain to the audience again. They just know the audience knows the rules, so to speak. But to have him like kind of just like also go, well, maybe this is what happens, and maybe this is why we have to do this. Like, on a whim, it just seemed ridiculous. I'm kind of like, where are you getting this from? Did you happen to watch the first three Final Destinations? Is that where you're getting it from? Like, this ideas that come out of nowhere for him. It's like, I don't know. It stretches any credibility the film has, which doesn't have much to begin with anyway. Not that it needs much. It's a fucking B horror movie, but I guess if I liked the movie more, I'd be able to let that shit go. Because everything about this film is just like offensive to me. I guess it's just one more like layer. I'm like, oh, God, can't even do that right.
Right, 100%. And that's how I feel about this whole movie. Because again, to your point, and it's a thing that I keep saying, is I don't mind a trashy B horror movie. There's this thing going around Twitter right now where people are putting up this thing and they're like, recommend me 12 movies I've never seen and I'll watch them, or whatever. And I have gone on to every single person's that I know who has never seen Basket Case, and I have put Basket Case as the one that I want them to watch because that's
The
what
hero we deserve.
I do what I can. Look, Basket Case is really not a great movie by any means in the normal capacity, but it is a great B horror film.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, and I adore it. All of its problems, it is not a well-made, well, actually, it's a pretty well-made B horror movie, but like, it's not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. But you know why I don't care?
Budget, that's what it is.
Right. But you know why I don't care?
Why?
Because I like the characters and I like the world, and I don't give a fuck about the rest of it.
You can tell they care for what they're doing. They care about what they're doing. They might not be able to do what they're doing with the budget they have and everything else that they have, but they care about what they're doing. These guys, it feels like they don't give a fuck. They're like, we're going to write the Crib Notes version of it, and we'll let the effects take care of themselves, and we're good to go.
Which is, again, almost hysterical to me, because when you think about it, I'm sitting here going, man, I have watched 13 Puppet Master movies in my life. And even at its worst, I would much rather watch any one of those because at least it's made by people who give a shit.
Right.
Like, every one of those Puppet Master movies, regardless of its quality at the end of the day, because there's some real bad movies in that franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, they are directed and written by people who give a shit, to the point that they don't write off a lot of what's happened in the other movies. They try to build off of the mythology of what came before. Right. They don't really care about anything other than trying to make it right. And that's what makes that stuff stand out. I am amazed that the guy who directed Final Destination 2 could come into this movie and direct something that feels so out of character.
Yeah.
This guy made fucking Snakes on a Plane. Snakes on a Plane.
This guy,
movie that's actually like very fun.
This guy knows how to make good, cheap-ish, fun movies. That makes sense. Like, even if they're not going to be Academy Awards, they're not going to be great films. They're going to be fun films. I don't know what banana pill he slipped on the way back to this one.
This is the dude who directed Cellular with Jason Statham.
Yeah.
And Cellular rules.
Yeah, I like Cellular. That's a good one.
This man directed Homeward Bound 2, Lost in San Francisco, featuring Michael J. Fox, who I love.
I can't say much about that one. I don't remember that one.
Well, you know what? Get your life together, PLD. It's on Disney Plus.
Sure.
You can watch it.
Sure, I'll put that on my queue. Way back in my queue.
I'm buying it for you for Christmas, just so that you have to watch it.
Son of a bitch. Why would you do that to me?
What do you mean, why? Michael J. Fox is a Canadian treasure, and we should embrace him.
I love Michael J. Fox. I just don't want to see him in Homeward Bound 2.
Why? It's a good movie. They're lost in San Francisco.
Yeah, I got that from the subtitle. I figured it out.
Wow. I'm so proud of you. Anyway. So,
I tell you what, after watching this movie, I'm definitely not in the mood to see any other David R. Ellis film anytime in the future at this point. I need a little time away.
I think we should all revisit Cellular and be reminded that is like one of the great thrillers of the 2000s. That movie's actually really good, and it has a stupidly good cast when you look back at it, because that movie has Chris Evans, Kim Basinger, Jason Statham, William H. Macy, and Noah Emmerich, and Jessica Biel.
Solid cast.
It's a solid cast. That movie is ridiculously fun. Yeah. I rewatched it probably last year, the year before, sometime during the pandemic, and I was like, dude, that movie holds up. And talk about, like, again, I don't understand. That dude could direct that movie, and that movie's fun as shit. And it's got a really fun script. And that's probably part of it, is the script is better, obviously. But like, the point is that I know this man can make a movie that I actually care about, that features a bunch of different characters that are doing a bunch of different things at once, but it all ties together. Why is none of that happening here?
Because you only care about the 3D, like you said in the beginning.
And none of the 3D stuff looks good in this. I'm going to be honest with you.
I mean, I didn't watch it in 3D, so I have no idea how it really worked or not, but nothing looked exciting to me for 3D.
Also, we haven't talked about this yet.
All right.
This cast is not worth shit.
Oh, God, nothing. There's
Somehow they got McKelty Williamson of Forrest Gump fame.
Yeah.
Bubba himself to be a part of this shit show. And it honestly just feels like that they added him in because they just could not get Tony Todd back.
That could be. I mean, I wonder if that is the case. Although it's not like he's playing that character. He's playing a totally different character, but...
I don't mean that. I mean, unfortunately, even until now, as we are aware, horror films always have a token person of color.
Yeah, especially back in the day, 100%.
And here we are, even in 2009, having to have the token person of color.
And unfortunately, I gotta say, I wasn't even a big fan of him in this film. He didn't get a lot to do. You got a guy who has proven himself before. You put him ahead of like some of the other scrubs they were putting into lead roles here. Although he didn't really, I don't know if he didn't care. Maybe he thought it beneath him. He just didn't connect with me either. He just felt like out of place to me. I don't know.
Everything about this movie feels out of place. That's the problem.
Everything. And all the deaths are just awful. Like, I gotta say, I said it about during the opening sequence as well. But again, we're known for especially when death comes to collect. Obviously, Death's plan is kind of forcing the issue, and so all these like coincidental happenstances start happening in order to make like the weird death happen. And you kind of accept it in this franchise because it's the way it is. But here, it just feels like they're overusing that trope so much. There's so many like things I can't even point out a specific reason, but like I was like everything had to happen like it did in order for this person to die again, and it just felt so tired because it wasn't, nobody cared about it. Like I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about what they're setting up. The deaths were for the most part lame. I think I liked one death maybe. And one death I liked. The one interesting death I liked was when the mechanic got like hit by the truck and pushed through the fence.
Oh, I didn't even like that.
That was the closest one I had to anything I liked. I didn't think it was great, but it was the best of the bunch.
I think you're right about everything you just said, nailing the idea that the whole thing just feels tired at this point.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because someone gets killed by a tire in the movie, but I'll see myself out.
No, don't. I don't want to talk about this about myself.
That the biggest problem is that it is very clear to me that everyone coming into this was just trying to chase another Final Destination movie without wanting to actually put the work in to be like, oh, hey, we have successfully done 3 of these and actually pushed the narrative forward in some capacity with each film, where we've expanded the world out, and the way that the deaths work has expanded with each film. Right. And we're doing all these things. There's nothing about what is done in this movie that expands on any of that. Nope. And there's also nothing that complements any of it or anything. They tried to do what they did with 3, which was do standalone again. But at least 3 had the good sense to be like, hey, this stuff has happened in the past. And you talk about, like, it all ties into the end, right?
Yeah.
The train is still 180.
Yep. This has got nothing.
This has got none of that. This movie doesn't care about anything that happened before it. And it doesn't care about anything that's going to happen after it because they called it The Final Destination, which I assume is why they had that stupid fucking opening sequence, because they're trying to treat it as a season finale or a series finale.
It should have almost felt like it should have been a series finale. I don't know anything about 5. I know you've told me 5 is better, but like it feels like this almost should have killed this series, and I'm surprised it didn't because it's just so laughingly bad at times.
Well, do you know why it didn't? Because it made $186 million at the box office. This movie made a ton of money, but we also have to remember it was in the middle of the 3D craze. So
Yeah.
everyone went to go see it because they went, "Oh
Yeah,
my
it's true.
god, we have to
Horror
go."
in 3D.
This is the highest grossing film in this franchise.
My God, that makes me angry. Makes me visibly angry.
Yeah. It sucks, man.
So fucking God.
I mean, but here's the thing, right? It was bad enough that it hurt the next movie because the next movie made like $30 million less than this did at the box office. It still made money,
And
but
that's
not.
why we've had a long time coming for the new one. We're supposedly working on a sixth one. But I
Yeah,
feel like that's taking a long time coming, probably partially because of what happened with this one.
right. Because you can't lose. Again, it's not like it lost $100 million at the box office, but and again, these movies aren't made for a lot, but you lose $30 million. It means you're losing a big chunk of people going.
Yeah.
Now, granted, that fifth one doesn't have the 3D, so that doesn't have the surcharge on the prices, which
Right.
also means this movie is bolstered by the fact that it was sold 3D tickets.
God, so like everything's working for it when it shouldn't be.
Right. And that's the other thing. This movie in no way leans in on doing 3D interestingly. There's
Right.
nothing of note that feels three-dimensional fun
At all. No.
to me. Like,
You can tell usually, like I remember when we watched Friday the 13th in 3D, whatever they had the part 3 is 3D, right?
yeah, part 3.
Yeah, part 3. Like, you could tell when 3D things were happening. And you even started thinking, like, because I didn't watch it in 3D, I never watched it in 3D. But like you're watching it happen, you're like, oh, I actually kind of like to see that in 3D. That'd be kind of cool. That was kind of cool coming at me. There's none of that in the film where I'm looking at it going, I wonder, okay, that's probably the thing for 3D, but why? Why are we doing this? It's just nothing. Every choice that is made is the wrong choice.
And that pretty much sums up my feelings about the entire movie. Because the truth of the matter is I just don't care. To the point that even talking about this is miserable. And it tries so hard to have this sense of humor about itself. And it tries to do, to your point, it's almost like a parody meta comedy off of Final Destination. But the thing is that it doesn't work because no one else is in on the joke. Like, nothing about this feels like it's supposed to be parodying what came before, which makes the sequence inside a movie theater where people are watching a 3D film at the end one of the most laughingly bad decisions in any movie I've ever seen.
And I'm sorry. I want to throw this out here now when you're breaking into that scene. How does the girl not believe the other girl? I'm going to sit here and watch this movie. You bitch, you just saw it happen with her boyfriend. And everything about the whole movie's gone down. And all of a sudden, she's like, oh, I saw a vision. I got to leave. And you were like, yeah, fuck, I'm not leaving. Are you fucking stupid? Like,
yes.
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 It's ridiculous. It is so god awful.
Every one of these characters is beyond stupid. And they also lean in on Nick, the Bobby Ocampo character, having all these visions throughout, and the visions are laughably bad to look at.
Yep.
And his are so specific to the things that are happening in such a weird way that I just don't get it.
Right.
It doesn't work.
No.
None of it works. Everything about this movie just feels bad and gross and wrong and not well done.
I wrote in my notes, eye roll at least 30 times. Like I wrote pool sex, eye roll. Like that pool sex sequence. What the fuck was they even doing in there? I mean, I am all for some I grew up in the 80s horror where there was just some gratuitous TNA and sex scenes and everything else. But this was just so like back in the 80s though, they kind of disguised it a little bit. Like you knew what it was doing, but it didn't seem so, like this was just completely and entirely a sequence. We're going to show this girl's boobs, and then that's why we're doing this for 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. Like so, she didn't die. She just walks out, gets dressed, and leaves, and then he leaves. There's no reason to see that scene whatsoever. It has nothing to do with any part of the relationship, or like with the upcoming deaths. So it absolutely ties in nowhere. So again, it's completely just like blatantly obvious, gratuitous TNA.
Pretty much, but at least I get to see his insides ripped out from his asshole apparently through a. What a fucking weird death, by the way.
That was
And
holy.
actually, that's this whole movie. None of the deaths in this feel.
Not inventive,
Yeah, they're not inventive. To
or they're
what you
inventive in
said
the wrong
earlier,
way.
it's tired. And
Yeah.
so nothing feels fun or exciting or like well done. I do like the idea of the car wash sequence. That's kind of fun.
Although it's fun, it became fun. I remember when I first taught it, I texted you. I'm like, "Are we really doing death by car wash right now?" Like, it feels like this seems so weird and like so tiring. But like when I watched, it's kind of like, okay, all right, that could have been a little fun. I get that's at least it's trying to do
And
something
it was
inventive.
clever.
Yeah, try to be clever. They tried to be clever this entire movie. Here's another thing that was another time that they tried to be clever. The death of McKelty.
Oh my god.
He comes through, walks down, says something about deja vu, and then the ambulance hits him just like just a complete callback to the bus sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, was that in one or two? The bus sequence in one.
That's one.
It is one. So it's calling back to the first film, and it's like it felt like it wants to be clever. Deja vu. Remember this? Now you're having deja vu. It's a similar death. But it's just lazy. It felt like it's like we needed death. Oh, let's throw that in there and make it. Remember,
but not just that. Then it happens again, just in case you didn't get the deja vu of it all, because that all turns out to just be a vision, and it happens all over again. It is painful. Like you talked about how you didn't love the final flash or the final premonition in the last movie.
Right.
This one is so much more egregious.
I fully agree, 100%. I think it tries to get away with it because it's supposed to be the final destination.
Right.
But like, they have this whole scene when like, what if we didn't change anything? Then what was the fucking point of this entire movie? Why are we even watching any of it?
And the funny thing is it does the thing that you and I said last week that I was a fan of. I was so glad that everyone died at the end of the last movie.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck here, and I don't enjoy it. So I'm actually mad they all died because I know that the point is guys, don't you get it? The title of the movie is The Final Destination, and the last place they end up is their final destination. Don't you get it? It's so clever. Go fuck yourself. Like, seriously? Your whole last conversation is just to tie into the title of the movie? Guys, what if we didn't avoid it at all and this was all just to get us here for our deaths?
Oh, God, it's so bad.
It's so bad. And then we don't even get the kills out of it.
No.
They're turned into skeletons as it goes into the credits.
It's, again, trying to be clever. It's not.
It's not clever. It's bad, and it should feel bad.
Yes.
This is a train wreck of a movie.
Speaking of train wrecks, my least favorite death sequence in any of these movies, the fucking the bath sequence at the hospital.
Oh, my Lord.
The nurse has this old guy strapped up who's kind of a prick. The nurse leaves because he gets called away, but leaves the water running. And like, not even a second later, it starts to overflow. Like, first of all, the nurse would have turned off the water and said, I'll be back to help you out or whatever. But then it goes on because not only does the water start overflowing, in like 2 or 3 minutes, it's pouring down below and the whole floor breaks open. Like, the hospital floor isn't any stronger than that. It wasn't like this was going for like any real serious length of time. Like, it was. And then that goes down, and we kill the cowboy, the poor cowboy who gets killed the first time through, almost gets killed the second time through, makes it to the hospital, is recovering just to die again. It was my least favorite kill the entire time.
It's not just boring. It's just
bad. It's bad.
It's just
egregiously, pathetically bad.
And I feel like
bad
that
movie
kind of sums up
bad for itself.
Yeah, that sums up how I feel. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is a bad fucking movie. There's very little redeeming quality across the board. it doesn't know what it's trying to be. It thinks it's one thing and trying to be smarter than the audience or winking at the audience, but it doesn't work. The kills are boring as shit. The characters are less than paper thin. The only other decent kill in this movie belongs to a rock going through someone's eye that is also just dumb.
Right? Not fun.
Also, hey, didn't those kids also survive?
That's a good point.
What the
That's
fuck?
a great point. That's a great point.
So death is just like, yeah, actually, we take everyone except the kids.
Fuck them kids. They don't count.
I just don't understand.
I didn't even think about that while I'm watching it.
Oh, I immediately thought about it. I was like, because they were there.
Yeah, absolutely. They had tampons in their ears.
Right. So they survived.
That makes no sense at all.
This movie doesn't play by any sort of sense of logic, unless I missed that they didn't die originally during the thing. But I have to assume if they were sitting there where the mom died, they had to have too.
If they, you know what? I don't remember either. Maybe that's what happened, and that's why we're not remembering it. But like, it doesn't make any sense.
It just doesn't make any sense, because why even have them there? Why even show them again? Because now here I am going, wait, but shouldn't they be dead? And I shouldn't be thinking of that about children.
Clip that out. We're clipping that out.
This movie is just bad, dude.
You know what else is bad? We have a nail gun
right now after watching it.
Yes, we have a nail gun again. You get pinned like Jesus Christ to the wall, and you're like,
because remember, PLD, deja vu.
Oh God! Oh God!
You just realized it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, their whole thing is the whole third act is nothing but deja vu. You should remember all this. It's all happened before. People were at a cafe again at the end, dude.
Mm-hmm. That I did recognize.
Oh yeah, and not just that. Why on earth, after everything, are you going into a cafe called Death by Caffeine?
It's a very good question, my friend. I don't know.
I'm angry talking about this.
Yes,
and it makes me visibly just angry.
I gotta be honest. This might be one of our shortest episodes, but I'm almost done talking. I don't know if there's anything.
There's nothing left. It's a bad fucking movie. It should feel bad. Brandy, I'm sorry. This movie is trash.
Not. I mean, let's be honest. Brandy didn't say this movie was great. She asked us to do the Final Destination series, and 3 out of the 4 have been at worst watchable, if not fun, trashy horror films. But this was definitely a trial, and possibly one of the worst films we've seen on Two Mediocre White Dudes on film.
I hate this movie.
Let's get right into it. Let's rank it.
I mean, I'm going to give this a 3.
That's a generous offer.
Yes, it is. It is a generous offer.
I'm going to give this film out of 11. Just I think I'll put it forth. I gave the original Final Destination 6.5. You gave it a 7.5. I gave 2 a 7.5. You gave it an 8. We both gave 3 an 8. So you give this one a 3.
Mm-hmm.
Give this one a 1.5.
That's a fair assessment.
I can't. I have nothing redeeming about the movie. Nothing at all. It should go home. It should be punished. It should feel sorry about what it did.
I want it to be grounded for life and never come out of its bedroom.
I hope so. I probably will never. This is one of the few times I'm very much a completist when I watch films. A lot of times, if I ever watch the Final Destination series again, I'm skipping this one.
Yeah,
that's how bad it is.
It really is that bad. This is again. I will just reiterate before we get out of here. I think the worst thing is that it could possibly do, and this is just been a miserable conversation again. I do not like being hard on movies like this. It
No,
is
me
not
neither. It's not what we do.
fun. I think that the worst thing it could possibly do, and the reason that it's so easy for you to disconnect and be like, I'm just never watching it again, is that it just does not play by the rules of what has come before in any capacity. It's the Good Day to Die Hard of this franchise. A Good Day to
Yes.
Die Hard does the same thing. It plays to none of the strings of the Die Hard franchise, does nothing within the confines of what Die Hard has been as a franchise to that point, and shits the bed because of it. That is
And what's
this
even
movie.
worse? What's even worse? I actually think this is actually even worse than A Good Day to Die Hard because it does all that, and we have no connective tissue, even in character wise.
Right.
At least A Good Day to Die Hard. At least it has Bruce Willis, even if he's phoning in as John McClane, like he's phoning in completely. But at least it's something connecting you to it. This has nothing, absolutely nothing. No characters, no rules, not even Tony Todd's voice. There's nothing that works except for the tiredness of it. It just feels tired. And I can't say anything worse about it than that. It's just as bad. It's just a bad movie on every single level. There's not one thing I enjoyed about this movie.
No.
Not one.
No, it's just a bad fucking movie.
I think I only didn't give it a 1, maybe because of the fence death, which was fine. I give it extra half a point for that, potentially. That might be it, though.
I gave it 3 because of the car wash sequence and the girl getting hit in the eye.
Yeah,
and I'll give them the escalator, even though it ends up being a fake out. I'll give them the escalator.
Yeah, I did get that. Was actually the only time I felt tension in the entire movie.
Yeah,
and
I won't lie to you. In the back of my head, all I could think about was that kid is back on the escalator.
I got the same thing. I got total ball rats vibes. I'm like, what? I kept wondering in my head. It's like, are they doing that on purpose? Are they doing that for Kevin Smith right there? Is David R. Ellis a Kevin Smith fan? Is that what happened there?
Yeah, kind of felt like it. Anyway, can we stop talking about this movie because it makes me sad inside?
We can. But if you want to torture us and pitch us movies, franchises we'll have to watch through, you can join us on patreon.com/PLD projects. You can join some of these fine patrons such as Daniel Ramirez, Brandy Buckingham, Brandy Parker, who I love you, Brandy, for making us do this series, not this particular film, but this series. Jeff Alterman, John Lastrina, Kelly W., and part of Justin Dason. The rest of you, I also just can't keep the lights on without you. So I really do appreciate your hard work and your support. As far as the channel goes, if you're new here to this channel, I should always say this at the beginning, and I always forget to say it. It's a typical thing that people, you hate to hear it, but you got to say it. If you're new to the channel, hit subscribe, hit like, leave us some comments. Tell us how wrong we are. Tell us why it's the greatest movie of all time. I want to hear your arguments.
I don't want to fucking fight someone.
I want to hear your arguments. If you could argue that, I want to hear it. I do. I want to hear it.
All right. Well, you do you.
You can watch a couple of their shows in the channel. Class Action every Tuesday now. Actually, since this is now, I think True Mediocre White Team is going to move to Thursday, but I think this week is going to be Wednesday still. But we do have Class Action on Tuesdays. We just had. It's funny. We're doing this whole beginning of the week. I'm recording this on Sunday, but when you're hearing this, Class Action will have been yesterday, and you have seen Avatar take on Avatar: The Way of Water with a surprise twist ending. So that's hopefully a good time. We also do Crown Jewels, The Journey Through Queen, which I go through all that. And also in January, we'll be starting off. I even have the thumbnail here, the generic thumbnail. Maddie Gunner and I doing Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast, where we return with a Bad Batch Season 2 and go from there. You can find me at Paul Gordon Newsy on Twitter if you want to talk to me. I'm always willing to talk. I'm always happy to talk. PJ, where can the folks find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at PJ_Campbell. Hive PJ Campbell. Bashing my head in, having to think about this movie any longer than I had to on all platforms. I hate this movie so much. Thanks for listening. We both
hate this movie. Thank you for listening. I have a feeling that next week, or not next week, I should actually announce that.
You've been so distraught by this movie that you have forgotten to do all the things that you would normally do.
Exactly. That's how fucking annoyed I am. We are taking next week off definitively, and I think we just discussed we're going to take 2 weeks off because of Christmas, and we're not going to record. We record on Sundays generally. We're not going to record on Christmas. We're not going to record on New Year's Day because we are both. I'm working. We have families and things like that. So get rid of us for 2 weeks, and then we'll be back recording the week after. That's when we'll finish the Final Destination series. Then we'll move on to an unknown series. We haven't decided that yet before we go back to a Patreon series. But a lot of fun coming up. And I guess that's it, guys, really. So till next time, stay mediocre, everybody. Never underestimate the power of mediocrity.
Fuck you, the Final Destination.
Yeah. Yeah, do that. Fuck you.